Good morning. Good morning. It's Wednesday Wisdom, and I am here with the beautiful Casey Lightbody. This is our first of a series. This is April, and actually just realised that this is the first of the second quarter of the year, right?
Correct.
So how appropriate. So Casey is. Where do I start? Casey is my business mentor, and she's just an amazing, when someone has a passion and a genius in their genius zone and they actually live it out. That's what Casey is and what I see Casey doing. And I'm actually like a bit on a high vibe at the moment because I've just actually been up to the Gold Coast and done 4 days with my other mentor, and then I spent a whole strategy day with Casey at her. We were just saying, I know what her office looks like now because I was up at Casey's house and we did a full strategy day, and I am so pumped. So how appropriate that we're actually here doing a whole month together and really deep diving into business and women and getting our voice heard and being out there and creating what our passion is, right?
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm on a high too, because it was so fun to actually be able to hug in person. Like we said, we talk so often on screen, but there's real value in connecting in person, right, Liz? And so thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you all about business. And I think, especially as women in business and as sensitive, intuitive, driven women who are wanting to make an impact in the world, I'm really excited to have this conversation over the next few weeks and really talk about how can we do business differently, right? How can we actually step out of the status quo and not fall into the cookie cutter formulas and doing things the way that people have told us to do business in the past, but really be able to actually lead from our hearts, lead from our intuition, and actually be guided by those things to actually do business on our terms. And we both are so passionate about doing that and not being the black sheep and being that kind of rebellious person who's willing to actually do things differently. And sometimes, it takes courage and resilience and tenacity and commitment and all those things. But, it comes with, here's the thing, right? Business has to be sustainable. We're in it for the long term. And so what I've noticed in my own journey and my own personal experience is that whenever I fall out of alignment, I can feel that feeling of burnout. I can feel that feeling of exhaustion. I can feel that feeling of something's off. I can feel the friction. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to get back on track? Because when you are fully in flow, business does actually feel easy. It feels joyful. It feels exciting. And who doesn't want to live a life like that, right? We've gone into business for those reasons, for freedom, flexibility, fun, and to make a difference in the world. And so there's so many components of this, I think, that's I'm excited to talk to you about.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely, that's why we go into business in the first place, right? Generally, we've got a drive, we've got a focus, we've got things that are in, this true purpose that we're following, like this bubbling in our belly. However, if it's not in alignment, if it's not, if we're listening way too much to what's going on out there and letting that influence us, we can fall down the rabbit hole, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
And yeah, go.
Yeah, and I think so this really leads us on to this topic for today, I think, because here's the thing, right? We can get led down the rabbit hole, and I think things will work for a certain amount of time and then they'll break. And that's why I've said it's the non-sexy truth that none of the influencers are talking about, because we all get can get so easily sidetracked by all the shiny objects, right? It's like, we've been on social media long enough to know what's the next best thing, right? There's, it was Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and LinkedIn and Twitter and now Snapchat and TikTok and Clubhouse and blah, 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 blah. The list is never ending. And you'll hear everybody like, oh, get onto Clubhouse. It's the next biggest thing. Well, where is Clubhouse now, right? Or
I was going to say, I remember jumping on that train actually, and then like when you said it, I'm like, oh, that's right. What happened to that?
Right, exactly, exactly. And so there's 1,000,001 different tactics, Liz. And here's the thing that I know for anyone who early stage business owners that are established, we will get to a point, and we'll get to a point that we'll hit. But unless we have the key foundational pieces in our business locked and loaded that are solid, we're building our business on very shaky ground. It's just like a house, right? Unless you have those key foundations put in place, then everything else can, you're building it and it's just going to crumble down. And so this is where I feel like a lot of the influencers are not talking about the foundational pieces of business, because they are the unsexy bits, right? They're the things like, well, it's not that flash to be talking about niching, for example, and I can go into a whole conversation around niching and what I think about niching, but unless you absolutely spend some time absolutely nailing these components, then you are building a business on really shaky ground. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about specifically today, is really looking at, okay, what are the key components and what are the foundations of business that we need to be focusing on, regardless of where we are in our business journey, and making sure that these pieces are absolutely nailed. And then we can actually layer it with the sexiness, right? We can layer on all the bits. And this is where, we've been working together. It's like, what fills you with joy? We can add those pieces, but we've got to have the foundational pieces in place first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so let's go into that. Like, what are the bricks and mortar? Like what are the the cement and the skeleton of the house that you can then build around for anyone that's watching that they're just starting out. I know that we've reached out to a couple of people to share, this is what we will be doing. And I know that there was some excitement of, I just started my business, so this is going to be great. What are some of the foundations that because if we don't get that right, as you said, it crumbles, and you go, why? I seem to be doing what everybody else is doing, right?
Why is it not working for me, right?
Yes. And then it goes into, there's something wrong with me, I'm broken somehow, I need fixing.
Exactly. So I call these 6 C's, Liz, and we'll go through the 6 C's. I'm just making notes so I don't forget one of them. But what I wanted to say is, so often when we're starting out in business, and me included, right, I am completely guilty of this. You get really excited to start a business, so you go and you develop your logo, and you focus on building your website, and you do all the fun things behind the scenes to get all set up, right? And what happens is we've missed the foundations, and secondly, we're not working on revenue generating activities. We can talk about that in another session, but the foundational pieces are the 6 C's. So the first thing for me is all around commitment. Now, commitment is an interesting topic, right? Because you can say that you're committed, but really, are you really committed? And so this piece that we really focus on inside the Quiet Impact Academy is, what does commitment actually mean to you?
Because commitment is great when everything's going really well, right? But when things start falling apart, where's the commitment, right? And where, are you still staying focused? Are you still doing the work? Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, and again, I'm guilty of this, so jumping ahead and doing the website and all that kind of stuff, but also getting super excited to set our goals, right? Oh, I'm going to make my $10,000 month. That's amazing. So we set the goal, but if we don't have the commitment that sits underneath the goal, then there's going to be all this friction, right? Because you don't have the commitment that's sitting underneath the goal. And that's exactly what we talk about, is like, okay, how can you take radical self-responsibility towards building your business? And what does that look like? And so really looking at your relationship commitment and saying, okay, am I all in? No matter what, right? So life can be lifing, and you know that we all know that life's 50-50. We've got ups and downs happening all the time, right? But how can you continue to show up in your power? Not circumstantially, right? So when power, like again, when life's pretty shit and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this because this is what's happening in my life. It's like, no, how can you keep showing up with that level of commitment day in, day out? And of course, that's not to say burning yourself out and doing all the things, but just getting really clear, because that's a whole piece around capacity that we can talk about separately. But it's really about saying, okay, what is my commitment and what are the key things that I'm going to be focused on to move my business forward? And that's not hiding behind building websites and things like that, because at the end of the day, we've got to focus on getting clients, right? So commitment's the number one. The second thing is credibility. So this is this piece around getting rock solid on you and the value that you bring, right? So I always say you've got to be sold on yourself before you can sell to anyone else. And so how we teach this inside the program is we look at credibility both from two angles. One, around authority. So how can you be seen as an expert? Right? How can you be seen as credible? How can you showcase your competence? I started this side. My little gold box that I teach all the time is my first mentor, because again, I was like, I could not see my expertise, right? It was like I was never enough. I need to do the next program and the next course, and I was the courseaholic that was never it was never enough, right? I just had to have
so many people, right? That's the incapable piece. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not capable, so I actually need to keep learning. Yeah,
exactly. So again, really looking for yourself. So I started that exercise and I literally wrote down every single thing that I had expertise in, and I really surprised myself and said, oh wow, I've got all this stuff. So then cognitively and logically I could see, okay, I'm an expert in this stuff, right? So it's really starting to first of all become aware of that. And then there's an embodiment piece of that, right? And so that's a whole another conversation again around the embodiment of your expertise and your credibility, right? On the flip side of authority, there's also the approachability side. So credibility is two pieces, approachability and authority. So approachability is showing the humanness behind the brand, right? So again, don't hide behind your brand, but really bring your whole personality to the forefront and create that relevance with your community. Create that connection piece. And so this is where, when I realized how introverted I was, when I realized how sensitive I was, I really brought that to the forefront to show that I'm relatable, right? That I'm human. And so it's that balance between authority and approachability that makes you magnetic to clients, right? So really getting clear on that for yourself first, and being sold on that for yourself first, because the more sold you are in that for yourself, the more you magnetic for your clients. So that's a core piece that we look at. Number 3 is all around clients, right? And so, I talk all the time. It's so important to go an inch wide, a mile deep when you're looking at really niching down to your specific client, right? And I call them chicken soup for the soul clients. These are the people that are not just ideal clients, but they're your absolute dream clients. And you want to start to think about, if I could clone this person times 100 or 1,000, like, oh my gosh, it would just be my absolute dream business, right? And so we really look at that and say, okay, and so I don't teach it around psychographics and demographics and, it's Mary who drives a Honda Civic, who is a middle manager for a corporation, who's age 25 and got 2 kids, right? We don't talk about niching like that, but it's all about the feeling, right? And it's all about, okay, what does that person really desire? Can you get into her head? What is her worldview? What are her worldviews? Like, what are her values? What are the things that really make her tick? And so we work from that perspective. And so getting really crystal clear on that client is number 3. Number 4 is then around creation. So then what we do is, now that we've got clear on our client, we've got to get clear on what is the transformation that she wants, and how can your offer or offers fit into that, depending on where she is or where he is on her journey of transformation, right? And so it's really about, and this can be little mini offers, it could be a full transformational offer. And so that's where we really work at actually meeting that particular client where they're at and supporting them to their next level of journey. So again, getting really clear on your offers and creating offers from a place of meeting your client where they're at and taking them to where they want to be. And so again, this is
absolutely.
really important to get really clear. Yeah, absolutely serving them. Then we get to the marketing component, right? So now it's then to say, okay, so my fifth C is the connection piece. Connection for me is marketing. Marketing for me is all about relationships, right? Marketing and sales is all about relationships for me. And so again, when we look at that for you, this is where it's so important to have done the pre-work of getting clear on who you're speaking to, what they want, and what you bring to the table, so your value. Because from there you can say, okay, well, where can I meet those people, right? And it's about developing those relationships. So again, like I said, I'm marketing model agnostic. Again, I know that there's 1,000,001 different tactics out there, right? You can jump on LinkedIn, you can jump on TikTok, you can do Instagram Reels, you can connect with coffee chats. All of the marketing works, right? But it's actually finding the marketing that works for you. And that is what is so, that is what is so key.
Yeah, that's right. Feels like it's serving your heart as well as your community's heart, right?
Exactly. Because when you can show up from that space, and that's not to say it might not feel uncomfortable to start off with, right? And this is a conversation that I have all the time with my clients. It's like, okay, now we've got to say, is that tactic out of alignment because it's not something that you want to do? Or is it feeling that little bit icky just because it's new and you don't know what it's going to feel like? And this is the distinction that we've got to actually figure out for yourself, for in being in the practice, being in the action, being in the momentum of it, just saying, okay, is this a tactic that I'm running away from because it's a little bit scary because it's new? Or it's like, oh no, this is completely out of alignment and I just don't want to be doing this thing, right? And so, an example for me, and this is a really good example for me, is that I held this belief when I first started the Quiet Collective, was that as an introvert, just because I love reading, I should be good at writing. And so, this is going back 6-7 years now, and blogging was a really big thing. And everyone's like, okay, jump on the blogging bandwagon, And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start blogging. But honestly, it would take me hours and hours and hours to write blog posts. And I'm like, this is not going to get me anywhere because it feels so uncomfortable for me to write blog posts. But, I gave it a shot. And then I was like, what do I love to do? Even as an introvert, I'm actually a chatty introvert. I do like to chat, And I was like, okay, I'm going to try podcasting. And so podcasting, oh my gosh, this is just chicken soup for the soul again. I absolutely love interviewing people. And that was the start of how I got into summits. And, that's kind of how I grew my business exponentially, was because I figured out that blogging was out of alignment for me. And so it was really having that kind of experimenter hat on and being a bit of a private investigator and getting curious and saying, okay, well, if this isn't working for me, what do I know that I love to do? Well, I love to talk, and so I'm going to try that. And then being open to following the breadcrumbs of that, right? And so it's really important to look at your connection.
When you found what worked for you and you were in alignment, and I'm assuming, like when you first, you've got to do all of those processes of how does that look, what equipment do I need and where do I do it, and all of those things, that's the discomfort of learning, that learning gap. But once you move into, conscious, what is the learning things that they have? unconscious.
Consciously competent.
Yes, consciously competent.
Yes.
It starts becoming way more natural, right? And you ended up holding on to that passion. And was that how you met the lady?
Amy Porterfield?
Amy Porterfield, yeah.
That's exactly it, right? And that's exactly what happened, right? And I've got to say, it was so overwhelming for me to start, right? So there's a distinction here. Blogging, I tried, I figured out, I understood all the search engine optimization for keywords. So I learned all of it, and it was still hard for me, right?
Yes.
Podcasting, you're quite right. I had to figure out what was all the tech. How did I upload all the episodes? How did I get it out there? How did I figure all my artwork and all that kind of stuff? And then I had to stretch my courage muscle and start interviewing people. And I'll never forget one of my first interviews was a woman by the name of Jamie Masters, and she had a podcast called The Eventual Millionaire, and she was interviewing people like Tim Ferriss and Seth Godin and all these really big names. And I was like, oh my gosh, she is such a seasoned interviewer, and here I am. I got so in my not enoughness around this, and it was scary to start off with. It was really scary to start off with, but I still felt like I could feel that buzz of excitement. Like I could feel like, okay, this is scary, but I love it, and I did. I carried on going, and I moved from, consciously incompetent to, I like to think, consciously competent now. And, we're hosting another summit in a few months, and I'm so excited because there's been no friction around that whatsoever now, because I'm so aligned to this pathway of marketing for myself now,
Yeah.
And so, such a good message for everybody listening is that really look at when you're choosing marketing tactics and selecting them, once you've got those other foundations in place, saying, okay, I'm going to try something, I'm going to give it 90 days to start to overcome some of that fear, get into momentum, because the momentum is going to give you clarity, right? And the clarity is going to give you confidence. And so you'll start to see, okay, all right, is this feeling good? Okay, I'm overcoming some of my fears now. I'm getting more confident with doing it. Is this something that I want to keep? Or it's like, oh no, my God, this is still so hard. And don't be afraid to ditch it then, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You've got to be in alignment with yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Or you're not going to get anywhere because of all of the chatter in your mind, and all the energy that you put into it will be of, this is a drain, I don't feel like I want to do it, and that shows up, right?
Exactly yeah. Right. And and sometimes I've spoken to women who but I've been doing this for 2 years, Casey, and I'm like, well, have you got a client from it yet? And they're like, no. Well, then what's the point of doing it? Be okay with just letting it go, right?
Yeah, and find what your niche is, like what feels and resonates to you. So I think we've got 1 C left.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, the last C is all communication. And the communication piece, I so often say, Liz, that you don't have a marketing problem, you've got a messaging problem. And this is the hardest foundation to nail, right? Out of all 6 that I've spoken about, messaging is the hardest piece to nail, because you've got to get out of your language and you've got to get into the language of your ideal client, your chicken soup for the soul client, right? And so this is the work that I continue to do on a quarterly basis. We continually update a working document to capture the language of our ideal dream clients, because when we can talk in that language, it immediately creates resonance with our audience, right? And so
they feel safe.
They feel safe, correct.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this person, so often I get, Casey, but you're in my head. It's like you're reading my mind. I was like, well, no, I'm not reading it. I'm just actively been listening to how you're speaking about what is it that you truly want, and what is the things that are getting in your way. And I can actually speak that language now, and so that's, it is like learning a different language. It really is, because So often,
Yeah.
we talk in our own jargon, and I'm in marketing, and I go like this because I started talking funnels, and I was like, I'm not even going to start getting into funnels because it's so technical, but it's really like it's so easy for me to fall back into that language of jargon because we're so in it, and we're in that area, we're in those our area of expertise all the time, that we forget that so many people don't actually understand that language. So it's how do we actually talk to them in their language.
And just as a side note, something that just came up for me when you were talking about, speaking the language of your ideal client and your avatar, it's still staying in your authenticity, right? It's allowing yourself to open up to who it is that that you're there to help and serve, and resonating and creating harmony and balance and that safety, because there's so much out there that's, we're all online, we're all doing, everyone's getting marketed to. And so when you can, speak the language of your ideal client, you're just holding the same frequency as them. Exactly. So that, get rid of the noise, get in your lane, and they will see you because they're in that lane too, right?
Absolutely. And I love that you talk this piece around authenticity, Liz, because this is the thing, right? And especially now, I talk about, I've been online for a long time, and in the online space, if you've been online 10 years, it's like 100 years in real life, things are moving so quickly. And, I've really noticed more and more, because online is getting so noisy, the more that you can bring your own personal brand through, using that credibility, that resonance and relatability and your authority, right? And really showcasing it from an authentic place, then that is the thing that's going to actually cut through the noise 100%, right? So it's about being brave enough to do that as well. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And knowing what that is too, like knowing yourself. There was so many times as you were talking, I saw, that's where I can come in and support people with their, their identity that gets in the way, because all the noise within the head, not just online, that can, stop them from staying focused and what is it that they want to show up as, and, holding that structure, but then being able to clear that information that's in your head so that you can stay focused and stay true to your purpose. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful stuff, and I'm really excited. We've got a few people on here. I haven't had anyone that I can see ask any questions, but if you would like to ask any questions to Casey or to myself, hey, Joanne, lovely to see you. I noticed there was Pamela on there. The way Facebook structures it now is you can't see, it disappears, right? Like all of it, like there's no, ability to see what has been said in the comments. So we can go back in and check that out. Casey, we're going to be doing a deep dive for, a couple of weeks now, the whole of April. And we've got some great topics, which is awesome. We're sort of taking everyone through a journey, which is nice.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so excited. And yes, by all means, if you've got any questions, feel free to tag me in the group. I'm more than happy to pop in and answer anything around this.
Absolutely. And Casey, you've got a Facebook group of your own called the Quiet Impact Academy.
No,
that's the one I'm in.
Yes,
what's the public one?
The public one is called the Introverted Impact Driven Entrepreneurs. So we can share the link down.
Yes.
If you're open to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's specifically for introverted women who are looking to really do good in the world and create global movements and global transformation and do it on their terms, right? So thanks.
That's awesome. So lovely to see. I mean, we just saw each other yesterday, right?
That's so fun.
That's so nice. Thank you so much, Casey. It's been a pleasure having you, and I'm so looking forward to, going into all of this information for everyone that's on here. So
Beautiful.
we will catch up again next week.
Next week, I'm excited. I think are we talking all about alignment next week? I think that's what we're talking about, all about
I think
actually
so.
getting into alignment. So I'm excited to chat about that next week. Thanks so much for having me, Liz.
Yeah, excellent. Take care. And if you've got any questions, just put them in the chat. Take care.
Bye for now.